Hello, hello. Happy Thursday.
It worked. Hello.
Hi, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Busy, always busy. How are you?
Same, same as usual. It looks like we have a couple of people joining in. Amy, can you just let us know that you can hear us okay? We are going to chat today, and I really appreciate Nichole taking time out to be with me because I'm going to interview you on my group coaching program and ask you all kinds of questions related to it. But before we get started, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell me who you are, how we know each other, how you found me.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I'm always happy to talk about group coaching because I always am talking about it. Anyway, might as well be here talking about it with you. I'm Nichole. I do a little bit of everything these days. I'm a writer. I run a mental health company, Irony of Ironies, some days. And I do some travel and some speaking about trauma and about stress. And I literally found you. Thank the universe. I found you because I searched the phrase recovering perfectionist on Instagram at like rock bottom, being like, help. And I think you're one of the only things that came up. And you had that free intro call, and I was like, hey, man, I'll try anything at this point. And then obviously fell in love with you. So been coming back ever since.
Yeah, and you were part of my first cohort for group coaching last year,
Yeah.
and it was 6 weeks long. Yeah.
So good.
Did you feel like the time was pretty good for that, like it being 6 weeks long?
It's so crazy to even think that it was 6 weeks long because I feel like I did a year's worth of growth. And I'm not kidding. Like, it's funny that you say 6 weeks. I think I wouldn't have even realized that it was
Right.
short.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was perfect. And the change I think was so pronounced and dramatic in that time, which is crazy. I don't know that there are many other things I could change that much in 6 weeks.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it is crazy. And for those of you that are joining that don't know me, my name is Nichole Coyne. I am a licensed psychotherapist. I'm also a coach and consultant for high achievers, type A, and perfectionists. Nichole and I have worked exclusively together within my group coaching program that's called Perfectionist Reset 2.0, and it is starting again here in March. I haven't nailed down a date yet, but if you are interested, please reach out to me, do a strategy call. Nichole and I are going to chat all about this program today, kind of what it was like for her and her experience. And I am just so grateful that she took the time out to be with me here doing this. So thank you everybody else for joining as well. Okay, so I have some questions, but do you want to start off with anything like off the bat of what you want to say about just like the starting pieces of it?
I think what I would say is if anyone else should be interviewed, it's probably my husband. He's the only one who could probably truly put into words the difference that program made, not just in my life, but in our lives. And I will also say, I think for anyone listening, just the transparent truth of it, I was really skeptical. I'm really tightly wound and very type A by nature. And I think I've always thought of that and my perfectionism as kind of a strength. And it was difficult that it had started becoming a weakness in my life. And I didn't think that anyone could do anything to make it better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I remember at the beginning, like talk after talk with my husband, as I was like, are you sure this is worth it? You know, should we really pay this much money for this kind of thing? And when I got done, he and I both laugh still to this day. Like I would have paid a lot more than that if I knew how much I was going to get out of it. So
I appreciate that. That means so much, especially too, because I hope you're okay with us saying this, but you and I had our call and then your husband jumped on a call with us so that we could really talk about like, what does this difference look like? And he can make sure I'm a real human being.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's strange meeting people on the internet and being like, hey, can you help me actually?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what do you think he would say about like the biggest transformation between like the perfectionist to recovering perfectionist? Because you and I talk about this transition.
Yeah.
But what's one of the things that sticks out for him?
I mean, like the thing that's most relevant in my life at this moment right now that is just incredible for me to say out loud is that I'm well rested, right? Like I don't think I ever said that to you before.
No. I don't know if I've ever heard it.
But my husband would probably say the biggest change is my patience and my joy are both back. I think I had lost those in the infinite pursuit of all of the things that I was trying to accomplish all of the time. And my recognition that rest can be productive, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I
and you said before,
there's no way that's true.
yeah, we worked on that for a little while.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Well, and it's a cognitive bias a lot of the times that we're holding when we're just holding this belief that like the only way to be productive is to be doing, not to be resting. And not a lot of people like hearing that. Yeah. Not a lot of people want to rest, especially the type A.
Well, there's also a difference, right? We can choose to do that, right? Achieve as much as we possibly can, burn out. Achieve as much as we possibly can, burn out. And I think that's how I had always lived my life. And now you might say that my pace is different. Might feel slower some days, but it's also more sustainable. Like I'm happy on a daily basis. I feel comfortable in my skin and in my life. I feel rested. Like those are things I wouldn't trade. I can't imagine not having them now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It makes such a huge difference when you actually give yourself that permission to like slow down for a second. But also you did the work, right? Like you put the work in on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it was work that I was happy to do, right? I'm always happy to try to get better. I think most perfectionists are, right? We want to be better at everything that we do. But to have the right guide, because I think my definition of better was wrong too, right? My question was always, how do I do more? How do I sleep less? And that was the wrong set of questions to be asking. So.
Yeah, I remember us having a couple conversations like that where it was just, what is the actual measure here? Like, what is the thing that we're trying to measure? And how does that compare? Because I think that we set this like abstract, that this like more and extra and constantly going is better, when reality is that doesn't necessarily sustain a lot of our work. So
totally.
Yeah.
And like, to what end, right? Like, not to mention, what do we feel in the process? What happens to us to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, and so with me, you did group coaching. What did you think about the difference with group versus like if you were going to try something individual?
What was so interesting about group coaching is that somehow it's, I know this is a weird thing to say, it's like easier to accept. You feel normal. There are all these people who can relate, right? So you're talking to other people, or someone else will jump in when you're mid-sentence and they'll say something like, that exact thing happens to me. And there's such a comfort in that. You show up and you're vulnerable and you're hurting and it's hard. And it's, I think, doubly hard for people with our personality type, right? Because we spend so much time looking perfect to everyone else. But this was a place where you could talk about that facade with other people and work to improve it and feel understood and normal and comforted by that. So I think that's how it was different, but it was really a boon. Like I loved that about it.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the hardest pieces with perfectionism is like it feels so isolating. You know, and the way that our brains are thinking a lot of the times of like how something should be done or what it should look like doesn't necessarily resonate with a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
So I am not a fan of groups. I'm not a fan of like that type of work, but this is where it can actually work and show change.
Yeah, I never thought that I would be either, but I can't really imagine having done it any differently. I loved it so much.
That makes me so happy. What were some of your goals coming into the group coaching experience?
I think what I wanted to feel again, and I know this sounds so extreme, I wanted to want to get out of bed in the morning and do what I get to do. I think I'm lucky to do a lot of things that I love in theory, but they had gotten so on top of me that I had lost that joy and that love for it, and I was so burnt out and I was so tired that I just wanted to get up in the morning and feel that feeling again of like, I can't wait to do all of these things I get to do. And I feel that again, which is such a shift from where I was.
I remember your husband asked me like, what assessment tools are we going to be used to like measure and determine like if this has made change? And I'm like, oh, I adore you because you're pragmatic and you're just like my husband. Like we married that type of person that's like super mathematical and logical. And I even love my clients that are like that. But I'm like, what if I could just show you the result? Like what if you were able to just see the results?
I think that's the best thing, right? I don't know that I could refer to a clinical measure that can tell you I was this much of a perfectionist then and I'm this much of a perfectionist now. But what I literally did and asked you for was we filled out that questionnaire when we started. What changes do you want to see? What are you looking for? And then to reread what I had written down 6 weeks later, that still feels wrong. I'm like, 11 months later. Now 6 weeks later, to read back through what I had written and to feel so far from that, to feel almost disconnected, like from what I had written. Oh gosh, I forgot how much I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. I forgot how worthless I felt a lot of the times and how mean I was to myself. So that stuff was extraordinary and sort of did give me a side-by-side measure at the end of the day.
Yeah, something to really just see the difference of. And I remember you telling me at one point too, like you were running and just you were thinking about how clear you felt. Like there just wasn't the to-do list.
There was a day I was running, I was trail running, and I remember the sort of, this is like an inception of awareness, but I remember the awareness that I was present on the run. And it was the craziest feeling to me. I was running and I was looking at the beauty of the leaves and the trees and my breath and, the fresh, clean air that I was breathing. And I recognized that was so unusual for me. It's almost sad to think about, right? And then I thought, why is this so unusual for me and so pleasant? And I realized it was because I'm not living an hour from now, which is where I got really used to living because I was so busy and just, I think, committed to such a rigorous standard all the time, and rest was unacceptable in my book. And so being present, I think, was also sort of unacceptable in a way that's extraordinary to look back on.
Yeah, it does change the way in which you see time, but it also changes the way you show up in those moments.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that. I was like, how did I do any of my job when I was unable to be present, right? I'm better at everything I do when I'm there.
It is that cycle though too, right? It's like the work to burn out to the point where you're like almost numb on that uphill climb.
Exactly.
So when you come down, now you're feeling everything. Now you don't have that space in that room. It's a lot to just completely transfer over to be like, what if you heard yourself differently? What would this sound like?
I think I remember saying to you, and I've said to friends since, I didn't even know, I didn't know that anyone's voice in their head isn't like horrible,
aggressive.
I thought everyone's track in their mind was this really, really mean voice that keeps you on pace. I thought it's good that I have that, and you and I have talked about this, but I thought it's good that I have that. That's how I achieve. It's how I accomplish. This relentless, vicious voice in my head that I would never talk to anyone else that way. And I remember not even being aware necessarily of what it was saying until we worked on it. And I was like, oh, it's nothing nice.
Yeah, she's quite rude. Thank you.
It's rude.
Yeah. Yep. And it's interesting too with the monger part of the critic, right? Because where do you see your monger today versus even before we got started?
My monger today is like a bully that's almost been put in its place.
Yeah.
She'll like pop her head out, vicious comment, and then duck her head back away because I can recognize it now, right? There are these new thought patterns that we work to develop. And so I feel like I snap into awareness of it much more quickly. So it's not gone, but I think I think I work toward a balance. Balance is probably my like word of the year, but I work toward a balance with that voice. And that was just something I didn't know you could do. I didn't know that, again, I didn't know anyone had balance in that voice. I didn't know there was a best friend. I didn't know that there were these different ways we could choose to talk to ourselves. And so the advocate is something that I work on all the time. And she's like almost got the monger hidden away.
And the monger, I don't know that there's ever a person that's like, I never hear this ever again, because we are people that internally criticize. Like we are people that have that script. We are people that have had trauma before. Like all these different elements do play a role in that. Yeah. It's managing it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, that's just something I didn't even know you could do. Yeah. I thought like, I don't know, this is who I am. This is how I achieve. And I think in a way I was, like I said, thankful for that voice, which is not something I feel today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when you assume that that's the only way that you're supposed to be living your life, you live in that constant
Yeah.
framing. So I'm so glad that it works so well for you to like sit in that shift.
Yeah. Me too. I don't, I think that's what's so beautiful. Like when I talk to good friends, and now it can be a conversation right now. I talk to people I know that I think like, I'm really sure you talk to yourself the way I used to talk to myself. And, I have a lot of high achieving friends and type A people in my life. And not all of them are perfectionists, right? But
Right.
many of them are. And when I talk to them about it, it's amazing because they can start to recognize and they can start to see the shift. And they're exactly the people, as I think I am, who are high achieving, and so they work their butts off fixing that voice. So it's so rewarding because it works, and they're exactly the people who can do it.
Yeah.
So it's like a perfect cycle.
Yeah. And I think, do you feel like it was a lot of acceptance? Like there was a lot of need for acceptance around that time of like me offering and suggesting, like, what if we look at it through this lens?
Yeah. I don't know that like acceptance. I think internal acceptance was really important, but I think for me, the word of the day at that time would have been shift. They were just shifts that I had never heard of, never thought of, never imagined that you could have. And again, I think the biggest shift for me was starting to think of my perfectionism as something that wasn't a strength necessarily, right? Like it's the secret. It's the, tell me your biggest weakness in an interview and you say perfectionism because really it's a strength, right? And I just framed it incorrectly my entire life. I thought it was the key to my ability to achieve. And really, in so many ways, it has held me back.
I'm so happy. It's so nice to like hear and have this moment with you too, because when you can't really put this on the back of like a box and be like, here's what happens in the step-by-step formation of like what it's like to overcome your perfectionism. So like having that moment, it means a whole lot. And it's also like something that I personally went through that I have to like be able to help people see, but all of our perfectionism is different.
Exactly. And I think what's so cool, having this moment so long after we did, that was last year.
Yeah, a year.
And to think how sustained these changes have been. Like, I'm almost unaware at this point. I automatically can shift that voice in my head. I automatically can recognize that I'm not present and alter that. Like, I don't remember the last time that I felt like I didn't want to get out of bed and face my day. So it's really like humbling, I think, and special to think how sustained those changes have been.
That's amazing too. And what's cool too is you even said in the beginning or a little while ago, you were like, I could hear it in other people. And that's like one of the biggest shifts. It's like, oh, I used to wear that big fluffy coat all the time.
Yeah.
You look hot.
Yeah.
Like it's 95 degrees outside and you look hot and you're still running in that. You don't have to wear that though.
Like, no, this is my strength. And I'm like, it's not, I swear, you don't need that coat.
Yep, but I can't give you that. So what are one of the other tools that you still really like to use? So we talked about like the inner critic, we talked about like your schedule and managing some of the burnout things. Is there something else that you notice that you use pretty frequently?
I think more specifically on my schedule, this is something I battled with you on so much. My schedule's insane, right? I'm sure a lot of people watching really know that feeling. Back to back to back to back to back, right? All like all day long. And when I find myself getting overwhelmed, I reel that schedule back into exactly the way that we talked about it in group and narrow it down to like 3 to 5 things, right? That's your voice in my head every time, 3 to 5 things. And that is what allows me to sort of catch back up before I burn out. And again, always working toward more balance with my schedule, but there's some days that get on top of me and that just is. And then there are days when I work really consciously to combat that and to feel more balanced. And that I think has been huge to me because I just get up and look at my calendar and be like, I can't, like how?
Yeah.
And for the next, it never stops.
Right.
And that's the other thing, like truly stepping away. Better norms around the way I use my phone with my husband, which he would tell you he also really appreciates.
Oh, good.
So like resting in a way that is actually resting instead of like, oh, I'm resting, but really I'm on my phone replying to emails, or oh, I'm resting, but I'm chiding myself the entire time and feeling really guilty for taking any rest. I think those things have changed and my rest feels like rest, which is huge.
Maybe I should start describing this as like giving you a new dictionary, because I feel like what we did was like change the words.
I feel like, I don't know that I would call it a coat. I talk about trauma this way too. I feel like I was carrying like a weighted vest all the time, all the time. And people would be like, yo, do you want to take that off? And I'd be like, no, never. The vest stays on all the time. And then I'd look around constantly and be like, how are other people not completely weighed down by the way their brain works? And the truth is, like, that vest can come off. You also build more strength over time to manage the load. That happens too. But there was just, it was an old coping mechanism, right? From when I was a kid, from the way that I grew up, that I hadn't been able to shed. And it was more, maybe it's like giving people an evolved way of coping, of existing. I don't know. It's crazy. I feel better in everything that I do. So it's more than a dictionary. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big evolvement, but thank you, because that is amazing, and seeing your results and all of what you've been through, and then on top of it, like how you've used this as a level 2 for yourself. And in the last year, it's been sustainable. It hasn't been something every time we've come together, we've just come together to say hi and see how things are going.
Yeah.
So, that is so empowering, and I'm sure that resonates with some of the people listening too, because this is the change that you don't really know you need until you're in that moment of like, when do I take the vest, the coat, when do I take this armor off?
Armor. That's the word. Exactly. Yeah. It's armor that you think you need, but you also don't acknowledge the fact that no one around you is wearing armor, but you're really tired all the time carrying all the armor. And I think you said it exactly right. You don't know you need something, and you don't know what that is. And it started my journey. I just heard the phrase recovering perfectionist, and it exploded my brain. I was like, you can recover from the what? Like, it just, the concept that I didn't have to be that way, I think, was mind-boggling to me, but I would never have known how to get there. And that was the other thing I wanted to mention was, we do come together and see how things are going. And I think we've maintained that relationship because this is not something that you teach in a detached way, right? Like, you live this, you know this, you understand it. And so your content was so relatable because you were constantly giving examples that I'd be like, what? But I did. And like you said, you would hear it in me, and, we would go back and forth about that. And you would tell me how you would evolve the voice in your head. And that was, I think, so much a part of it. It didn't feel like the person teaching me the skills was removed from the experience, as I think this stuff can sometimes feel.
Yeah, no, exactly. Any type of like self-compassion or interpersonal work that we're working on a lot of the times, especially with the difference of like, when I'm a therapist and we're showing up in that capacity, like, it's really important that I don't hold biases and I don't hold judgment. But the whole reason that this started was because I realized that these individuals, in order to succeed, actually need that shared vulnerability. They need more, and it can't be done alone.
Yeah. When
you're doing it alone, you feel so disconnected.
Yeah. And I think, uniquely broken, right? That's the community that you get from the group, is like, all of these people think exactly the way that I do, or very similarly to the way that I do. Yeah. And that's part of, like, healing. I think part of recovering is connecting that way.
What would you recommend to anybody that's interested in joining the Perfectionist Reset 2.0 group coaching this coming cohort?
Just do it. You can send me a personal message. I promise you'll get to the end and be like, every single penny I found, that was worth it. I think if you're willing to do the work, right? That's the difference. If you've come to the conclusion, like, something's got to give, I need to feel different, feel better. It was like, not just what I didn't know I needed, but it was so much more than that. And I think the amount of content you receive is mind-blowing. The amount of one-on-one time, the journal, like, changed my life alone. Then I didn't realize we'd be getting video content ahead of time that you can study and write your questions down and, like, connect with it, watch it twice if you want to, then come bring your question. It was like, the format was so amazing. The content was so amazing. And then, because it's a small group, so it also gets sort of personalized as you go. I remember specific questions that I had that then we'd spend, 20 minutes on that. I wish I could say something more useful than do it, but, like, I don't don't get paid to be here. I'm not, I literally just,
I do owe you a hoodie now, but yeah.
I can't wait to wear my recovering perfectionist hoodie. I swear that one day someone will walk up to me and have the reaction that I had when I first heard that phrase, and I'll just cry with them and be like, I know.
No. You too? Me too?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm going to tell just a little bit about the program so that people kind of know, because you're bringing up like all the best pieces of it. So the program is actually 6 weeks long. It is group sessions held throughout those 6 weeks on a time that makes sense to all of us, that is flexible, because I realize we all have very busy schedules and not everybody's located in the same time zone, which is super fun. You get one free individual one-to-one coaching session with me that's held right in the middle. You also get what's called an interactive journal, which means you have this place that you can go and dump anything you want to, and I actually go in and comment and add questions and poke, really, is what I do, because I'm like, wait, what is this? Like, what are we talking about here? And we bring all of that information into the group each week, anything that you really want to go through, anything that you really want to deep dive into. Plus, it comes with my entire course that's been completely revamped. So it comes with Perfectionist Reset course. It's on a whole new platform right now. It is all still video content and includes all the worksheets and tools and resources that Nichole got to use, plus more, because I keep adding to it. So that's kind of what the course overview looks like. If you are curious about whether this is for you or not, book a call with me. Book a strategy call with me, spend an hour with me. It's free. Why not? Let's just chat. Let's figure out what you kind of need, where you're at, how your journey can look very similar to Nichole's or any of my other coaching clients that have worked with me over the last couple of years. I would love to have you on board if you are interested. Nichole, do you have any
strategy call? That was the best thing that I did, right? Like, I think I probably wouldn't have ultimately signed up, but we spent that hour together. I hung up. I was like, oh no, she's like, she gets me. And then you sent me some like overview, documents, and those really I was like, uh-oh, this is exactly me. And my husband joined, and he really felt that he connected with you and that it was going to be helpful. And I think that was the thing that really was the tipping point. So, and it's free.
Thank you.
Like, might as well.
Yeah, you might as well. While I have hours still left in my calendar, take them up with strategy calls, because those are my favorite. One of my favorite things to do is meeting people and letting people sit with this reality that this doesn't have to be the permanency of their life, that you don't have to keep living this way.
I don't know what people are expecting. I think I was kind of expecting a sales call. I thought I'd spend an hour of literally just pitching over and over. And I was like, look, I've read the website. I don't need an hour of Nichole telling me what I put on the website. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, we talked about like deep stuff, even that first hour, and really connect. I didn't feel like it was like a sales call at all. It was really helpful.
Yeah. And I don't love sales calls. I don't love icebreakers. I don't always love being vulnerable in groups. So like all of those things I totally get, which is part of our habitual process of like, I don't want to do that. Like, leave my armor and go away. Thank you. But yeah, that is what that call is meant for. It's meant for having that connection. It's meant for making you feel seen. It's making you feel like there is an option. So I appreciate you saying that a lot.
Really.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Just probably deeply thanks from my husband.
I'm sending him a sweatshirt too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be like, I'm a recovering perfectionist. His will be like, I'm with that recovering perfectionist.
Yep, I survived.
Yeah, I survived. Exactly. My patience has increased 100-fold. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for coming live with me today. If anybody in the audience has any questions, wants to DM me, please let me know. I am doing strategy calls right now for the upcoming group cohort. It's in my link in bio. Go ahead and go right on Calendly and book it and get a free hour with me. Let's just chat about what the possibilities are for you.
You will not regret it.
Thanks, Nichole.
Yeah, thanks, Nichole. I can't thank you enough. You know that.
Absolutely. Tell hubby I said hi.
I will.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.